Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of The Well-Rounded Musician. This is week 12 that we are doing this, which is so exciting. We've loved having Alexa here as part of our weekly programming at Jazz at Lincoln Center, and having these special guests join her has been just a nice little treat as well. So for those of you who are new to our programming, my name is Chloe Dre Fogel. I'm the video editor at Jazz at Lincoln Center, but I'm here to be your host tonight. Today, Alexa is joined by a trumpeter and friend of Jazz at Lincoln Center's Riley Mulherkar. They'll discuss what it means to be a well-rounded musician and how they're both making the most out of quarantine. We'll then open it up to questions from all of you. When it's time for the Q&A section, I'll jump back in and explain how to ask a question. For now, please feel free to use that comment section on Facebook, or if you're here on Zoom, the chat feature here as well. We'll be monitoring that as the class goes on. That's it for me. I'm just gonna turn it over to Alexa and to Riley. Enjoy, everybody.
Thanks, Chloe. Hi, everyone. Happy Thursday. Welcome back. So happy to see you all for week 12. I want to know if anyone has been here every single week, and I want you to send me a message on Instagram or something, because I'm going to give you a big shout out. I really appreciate all of the regulars that we've seen, and Chloe and I have just looked so forward to this every week. So if you don't know about Riley, you should. He has all these awards and things that I could go on, but I want to just give a little bit of a personal story. Riley and I both met because he's an alum of the Juilliard School, and I met him actually as I was entering the Juilliard School for my master's degree, and we just have bumped into each other ever since. And he's somebody that I think you all will find very inspiring in terms of the many avenues that his career has unfolded in. And if you tuned into JELC's Essentially Ellington Festival a couple months ago, you saw us both on the judges panel, and we are actually both Essentially Ellington alums. So we had a really good time texting each other back and forth about, you know, any of the solos and all that stuff, and just good times. So super excited to have him. And in terms of the ensembles that he works with, he has a big band. He works as an educator in Seattle, mainly as the artistic director for Seattle Jazz Ed, I believe.
For one of the camps, but there are a number of wonderful teachers out there. I can't take credit for the whole.
Okay. But you are the artistic director of the one in Aiken, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that one.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. So, and also has a group called the Westerlies, which is a new music brass quartet creating rare hybrids of music that is both folk-like and composerly. I'm quoting that from NPR. I've got my whole spiel here for you, Riley.
I'm prepared.
So that's Jazz at Joy in Aiken. I just want to make sure I got that right for everybody. So anyway, Riley, welcome to the party.
Thank you, Alexa. And I just want to do a little hats off to you and Chloe and everyone. 12 episodes of this show is incredible. What you guys have put together in this new, virtual era. I remember texting you way back in, I don't know, April or something, as we were toying with these ideas of what are we going to do? What are we going to come up with? And I think this has been such an awesome weekly thing to offer the community. And it's also sort of fun. Like, I've been doing a show on Instagram, and now this is sort of like the meeting of these shows together, coming together in the same space. So it's great to be here.
Yeah, exactly. And I've loved watching On the Road with Riley. For anybody who hasn't already tuned in, that's a weekly IGTV show. So we've got you on all platforms with Jazz at Lincoln Center. Yeah, so it's all good. Super excited to hear what you have to say. So let's just dive right in. I guess the number one question that everyone wants to know is, how are you making the most of quarantine? What types of stuff, have you been doing to keep you motivated, to keep things rolling?
Yeah, it's been quite a time, and it's also sort of like I don't even remember time before quarantine. So it feels like we're sort of in this infinite state. But what have I been filling it with? One thing is the show On the Road with Riley, which has been a blast. It was it's on IGTV, as you mentioned. And if you don't know what IGTV is, that's okay, because I didn't know what IGTV was until we made the show. But it's like Instagram has a feature for longer videos. And the idea for the show was, originally check in with people in different cities to see how they're doing and see how they're coping in these times. And then we play a song together, which we sort of, record virtually and put it together in the best way that we can. But that's actually been one of the most meaningful things for me right now, just for the conversations. They get edited down for the show, and they're like maybe 5-minute conversations, 6-minute conversations. But each week I've been having like 20-30-minute long conversations with folks in Seattle, Portland, New York, Chicago, all over the place, and people's perspectives on this moment and on their scene. St. Louis as well. We had a great check-in with the St. Louis community. It's been really wonderful way to keep this feeling of community going, that we take it for granted when we're going from gig to gig, or when we're on the road, and you just take it for granted that you're going to go to LA a couple times and see your people out there, and then go through Seattle and and whatnot. And so it's been a great way to keep that community alive. So that's one thing. And then been continuing work with the Westerlies, which as you mentioned, is a brass quartet, and we're super active in trying to find ways to sort of beat the Zoom audio latency issue. So we've been working on that, doing some weekly broadcasts. And then I think the other thing is just like trying to use this moment to, be as involved as possible in both protests and demonstrations that are going on, but also in taking this time to, educate myself and, reflect on myself and find ways in which I can hold myself accountable, and reflect on ways in which I'm complicit in systems that I don't believe in. And so I think it's been a really meaningful time on that end, and then translating that into action and a lot of work towards the election, which is coming up. So like partnering with organizers and people on the ground who are making things happen. So that's sort of a long rambling answer, but it's been sort of a long rambling infinite time space experience.
Yes. No, that's amazing. And we all want to know, because I think it just helps to hear, other people's perspectives, and especially when you're involved in so many things. I mean, I see what you're doing online, and I really admire how you have made all of this happen with the Westerlies especially. Can you share how that started and how it's grown over the past several years?
The group itself?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Well, we started as childhood friends, more or less. We all grew up in Seattle, and we grew up playing in the Essentially Ellington competition, which you mentioned earlier. Mm-hmm. 3 of us, of the original members, 3 of us went to one high school together, Garfield High School, for those out there who know the high school band scene. And then our trombonist, Andy, unfortunately went to Roosevelt High School, which was a big rival.
Yeah.
We'll
let him in, right?
Yeah, and by the way, both those bands sounded great at this year's festival. They made me very proud. But we all moved to New York around the same time, so we spent a lot of time. We would eat dinner every Sunday night, and we would listen to music and hang out. And eventually, Willem, our other trombonist, had the idea. Why don't we play music together? And it's 2 trumpets and 2 trombones. We didn't really have a context for what that could be. We didn't have a body of music, a frame of reference, or anything. And so it sounded pretty bad, when we first tried it. But we chipped away at it, and it's really grown to a very meaningful project of ours, a very personal project. We put in some serious time honing our music. We put in some serious time on the road, just like a garage band, just like literally getting in a van and driving up and down coasts and playing concerts for 2 people or 200 people. You never know what you're going to get. And now actually our new trumpet player, not new because it's been 2 years, but Chloe Rowlands is another essentially Ellington alum. I'll point out because we first met her when we were all in high school together at essentially Ellington. She was coming in from Arizona.
Oh wow, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Amazing. And so you've gained nonprofit status, is that right?
Yes.
And so that's like yeah, I did my homework, Riley.
I was going to say, I mean, of course you did, because I know you, and I know in the context of a gig, you always are prepared. But in the context of a conversation for the show, you're also prepared. But we are a nonprofit, and the idea is that you know, it's a model that a lot of classical groups have established. Kronos Quartet is a nonprofit. Roomful of Teeth is a nonprofit. The Knights are a nonprofit. But it also just allows us to do a lot of exciting work that is maybe outside of the space of a normal ensemble. We present a festival in Seattle, our hometown, every year. We are able to partner with organizations. We've been doing a lot of work partnering with a civic action organization that's based in Seattle right now. So we've been doing these concerts where everyone listens to music, and then while they're listening, they advocate for mail-in ballots and safe voting and voting rights across the country.
Wow.
So it just sort of opens doors, you know, for us that have been really rewarding.
That's amazing. And it's something that I think is very unique in that you're kind of blending, like you said, the classical model, and not even fully with jazz, because it's not like you're one complete, like fully a jazz ensemble. You've got all these other influences, folk and original music as well, right?
Yeah.
You're really covering the spectrum. So I think that's awesome. And in terms of what that group is doing now, I mean, I guess the touring is done, but I think you guys have been recording virtually. Is that right? I've seen some stuff.
Yeah, we've been both recording virtually, which is a learning curve for someone like me. I had no idea how to do that. And I think a lot of folks right now are, you know, buying microphones, getting Logic, getting Final Cut Pro, or doing the free trials. You know, my Final Cut Pro free trial is about to expire. Someone help me.
Yeah.
But figuring out how to do that, and so that way we can piece things together. And then also we've been working a lot on how to play in real time together. So Andy, our trombonist, has devised a genius system that allows us to play together in real time. So we had a broadcast earlier today, actually, and it's time intensive, and it's not 100% stable, but for the most part, we're able to, four of us, improvise, play together, and do our thing, which has been really a thrill.
Wow, that's amazing. Amazing. So switching gears a little bit, just kind of in terms of, you know, things we've talked about in these past 12 weeks, we've talked about productivity, time management, you know, efficiency, and kind of having all of your professional materials together, you know, as an emerging musician trying to jump into the scene. I've heard from so many people that some consistent daily practices are what keeps them going and keeps them like mentally and physically centered. Do you have anything that you have to do every day, or you want to do every day, to keep yourself in the right headspace to do all of this creative work?
That's a good question. You know, I feel like I do more now a little bit than before. You know, before COVID and traveling and touring, I felt like every day was so different, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm not sure I had, I do play my horn every day, you know, and part of that is mental and part of that is physical, just because the trumpet is so unforgiving. But now in this time, which has still been a very, I think, busy and intense time, but in a different way, you know, I have found, I think, approaching the trumpet, approaching practice in a different way slightly, where, because it's not performance oriented, you know, it's more practice in like an Eastern sense of, you know, this is my practice. Frank Kimbrough, our old mutual teacher, he would always talk about that, like the different ways you can define one's practice.
Yeah.
So playing trumpet is that way for me. I think listening to music is that way for me. Especially right now, there can be a lot of intake of news or podcasts, or just a lot of, your ears can only really hear one thing at a time. So making sure that I create the space for listening, it does a lot for me as a musician, but also just for my own well-being, I think. And basics like exercise, I remember I got to hang out with Sonny Rollins once years ago, and all he would talk to me was like eating healthy, but I try to abide by that.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's not what I expected I would glean from the master, but
that's so funny. So what are some things that you've been listening to, whether it's podcasts or what?
Well, for music, I'm always listening to a lot of Louis Armstrong. I'm working on a thing right now for the Louis Armstrong Museum, which actually, if anyone is watching, check out the Louis Armstrong House and Museum. They do incredible work. So I'm putting together a little thing for them, and as soon as I start to listen to Louis Armstrong, it's like a rabbit hole. You get sucked in.
Yeah.
So this morning I woke up and I put on the song Azalea, which we were just talking about before the show. And I just had a repeat for about 15, 20 times.
Yeah.
Just that song on repeat this morning. So that's what's been in my head today. But then I've also been trying to listen to folks in our community who are putting out music right now, and paying for their music. I've been trying to pay for their music through Bandcamp or through their websites, just to support people and hear what people are putting together, because it's really exciting stuff.
Yeah. So taking it a little bit further down, like the musical discussion, one class that we had several weeks ago, I talked about my different approaches to learning tunes, and I have, some steps that I use when I'm working with students. But for you, like with a tune like Azalea this morning, I mean, you said you were kind of quizzing yourself. So what do you do when you're learning a new tune? What are your kind of steps, and what are you quizzing at this point?
Well, I feel like I came to the tune learning game very late, in that it's not easy for me. It doesn't come naturally to me to know how a tune functions or how a tune operates. But the thing that does come naturally, or not come naturally to me, but the thing that I'm drawn towards, that I've always been drawn towards, is just melody. So this morning I listened to Azalea, I think 15 or 20 times. I'll just listen and listen and listen. And so it's stuck in my head all the time. I can sing it. I will hopefully have a sense of the solos, the melodic language that goes beyond just the melody itself. And so if I can really internalize that, then sometimes actually I'll realize I know the chord, I'll know the form, and maybe know the chords in harmony without even having to go through that process. Or if it doesn't come naturally, then I'll figure it out, but I still have this sort of guide through it all. So for me, it's always about melody, in terms of learning tunes, and then in terms of playing tunes and trying to improvise, melody for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just this week trying to get back into playing like an actual tune in all 12 keys. Like I usually play blues or rhythm changes or just like little licks or something. So I've been playing You've Changed, which is like one of the most haunting set of melody and lyrics in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I thought it was so interesting because I spent one day and I just took the time to just play the melody without, not playing it along with anything, and just the melody. And then I wrote down like there were some keys that I really liked it in better than others,
Interesting.
And then today I went back and played, with a backing track, to kind of blow over it, you know, a little bit and follow some of the harmony a little bit more clearly. And then it sort of changed. Like those favorite keys of mine weren't necessarily my favorite today. It was interesting. So now I'm like on this whole wavelength of, I know, you know, a lot of our heroes have done it, but of really like, if I'm going to play or perform a tune, like seeing what my key is for that tune and just on this thing now.
But that's like singers will do that all the time, but I think horn players a lot of times, like I haven't even thought of that really, but why not? Of course it would make sense.
Yeah, and I think it's like it just takes you into more of like a meditative state when you're like thinking about the brightness or the darkness of a key. Is really interesting.
And and then also I think melody, to the point of melody, I was just teaching a virtual Zoom camp for Seattle Jazz Ed, which is this awesome organization in Seattle that you mentioned.
Yes.
And I teach one of their summer camps every year. And, you know, I had this whole sort of curriculum planned out for the week, but I realized, you know, all I really wanted to talk about the whole week was just melody and how to listen to melody, how to play melody, how to improvise with melody. There was this fantastic cellist in the group, and they were interpreting the melody with all these double stops, sort of rubato, and I was like, that is, you know, that's like Arthur Russell meets Billy Strayhorn meets, like you have to push that and go in that direction. So I just, you know, I've been thinking a lot about also in education how melody is just so key.
That's awesome. I love it. I know, and we keep saying that we're gonna put our jazz camps together in the powwow. So hopefully 2021 we'll do a little something.
That's right.
Battle of
Rockport meets Seattle. Yeah. We'll have to do it literally geographically in the middle. So someone find the coordinates.
Can somebody Google this?
Is it going to be like
Rockport, Massachusetts to Seattle?
No, maybe it'll be like in the Dakotas or something. We'll see.
That could be good. We can start a third, you know, a hybrid in the middle.
Yeah.
I love it. That's great. And so I'm curious, you know, aside from the Westerlies, which I know takes up a ton of your touring and performing time, I think you also have a big band. Is that, and you call it the Riley Mulherkar Big Band, right? And is that
I do actually Jazz at Lincoln Center named my big band the Riley Mulherkar Big Band, and I went with it. So that's my big band.
Okay. So talk about that ensemble. I mean, because that's totally different, totally opposite from, you know, a small chamber group.
Totally. And I mean, I've presented a big band for shows before, but more than that, I think I just love being a music director of sorts, and bringing musicians together for specific shows. So, you know, shows I've done at Jazz Lincoln Center that have had large ensembles, big bands. I'm planning one right now for next season, which we're hoping we can do. And that shows a collaboration with Jeff Ward, who's, you know, one of my guiding lights of history, of wisdom, of just being. So, but the big band you were asking, you know, it's totally different, but I think what I always am reminded of is how the more people you bring into a musical situation, the less you can control it, which can be one of the most stressful parts if you're trying to be a music director, but it's actually one of the most rewarding and exciting parts when you get down to it, because it's so much more unpredictable, you know, and what will happen on stage. It's like the shows that we've done have been some of my favorite shows of my life, because you're forced to be so present, because, you know, there are 20 folks on stage, and who knows what's going to happen next. So it's a total flip side of the experience, like you said. But I would feel empty, you know, if I didn't have that to counterbalance really intense small group work, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I have really great memories of our Riley's Red Hot Holidays gigs.
Yes, it's a holiday tradition.
That's
at Dizzy's.
One of my favorites.
Although you've stepped it up, didn't you have you have like antlers that you form.
Yes, the sparkly, jingly
Yeah.
antlers. Yes.
See,
Sponsored by
you always come prepared. That's what I was saying. Always
in all
prepared.
departments.
Yeah.
I did tell people, you know, in the earlier classes, it was all about, you know, in the professional conversations, we did talk about presenting yourself well. So, you know, gotta have the
And
accessories.
sometimes that means sparkly antlers. See, that's what they don't teach you at Juilliard. They don't tell you about the sparkly antlers.
They don't. How to keep the gig. So funny. So, okay, shifting back to quarantine time and productivity, with all of this stuff that you're doing between the Westerlies and the big band and music directing and just educating yourself and educating others and being active in today's society, how do you ever feel burnt out or, you know, kind of like less inspired? And when that happens, or if that happens, I don't want to assume, but how do you deal with it? How do you deal with that moment of kind of like drained or lull or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I do feel it, and I've tried to evolve with it, and you know, because burnout is real, and I think especially right now, you know, a big lesson has been being forgiving with myself, you know, and just admitting that I don't know how to do it all, really. You know, I can do my best all the time, but you know, back in March I had COVID, and it was before. Did I tell you that?
No.
I didn't mean to bury the lead. But it was before everything was canceled, and so it was as things were canceling, but they were canceling like 2 weeks out rather than like, you know, 2 years out.
Right.
So I was supposed to play at the Jazz Lincoln Center Gala. I was going to do a Brubeck.
Oh yes, yes. I think I was going to be there with
you.
Yeah, well, yeah. I don't know if it was the same song, but anyways.
So as I had COVID, I was like frantically trying to transcribe these Brubeck parts, and just it was just like the epitome of not being able to just, you know, put things down for a second and be like, let me just get better. That would be one thing. So that was a learning moment that I had, you know, just in this COVID time. And then, you know, the whole universe taught me that lesson. But I think since then, I've tried to keep an awareness of, you know, I think the phrase is overused, but self-care, you know, and I think some ways to do that are actually by taking action in creating the space, you know. So it's like if you feel like you're obligated to do too much, or you feel like you're not getting everything you need because you have 100 actions to do, actually maybe the most valuable action is to create space for this other action that you need in this time. So that might be like reading for 45 minutes, or that might be meditating for 20 minutes, or that might be going on a run, or that might be setting aside time to work on that thing you've been procrastinating. But that's been, I don't have the answers, but that's been what I've been trying to do right now.
Yeah, that's great. I'm somebody that like I make to-do lists and have all the action items and all that stuff, and then I
got a to-do list right here.
I'll realize, you know, like 7 days or however many days later, I'll be like, oh my God, like, did I read a book? Did I go for a walk? What's been going on? So
right.
even in this time, I found I don't know. I mean, I think, I don't know if this is rude, but I think, you know, everybody knows everybody's home. So I think, you know, everybody has their devices buzzing and beeping. And so I think we all kind of think that, I'm not going to say that we think people are doing nothing, because that's not true. But like, if we reach out to somebody now, it's like kind of expected that you'll get a response quicker, or that, you know, they might be able to make something happen because we're all like sitting at home. But I've just found it to be totally the opposite. Like, I'm just like, I can't wait to get the gigs back. I don't want to,
I know.
the longer that I sit at home, like the more that comes on my list, whether it's putting things on my website or copywriting something or whatever. And then it starts to detract from like the real meaningful work, which is like the playing and the shedding.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's interesting. It's a weird time. It's a weird contrast of productivity.
Yeah.
But I didn't mean to just like vent at you as if you were my therapist, just then for a second.
No, this is, I mean, I know there are people watching this, but this is therapeutic just to get to hang with you.
Guys, this is jazz therapy. This is I'm the new jazz therapist.
Well, that would be a good hashtag.
That would, and honestly, I think we would have a good following. Okay, so let's talk about something fun. I'm going off of my usual, list here, but I just want to hear like if you can share with us some fun stories, something appropriate for all ages, but some fun stories of either, a moment like on the road where maybe you had just so everything just clicks, maybe in a performance, or maybe some hilarious travel story. It could be something where you learned a lesson, like a big lesson. Maybe it wasn't such a great moment. Something to lift the spirits beyond the jazz therapy.
Okay. Well, about a year ago, I had a really exciting opportunity come up, which was to play with Kenny Barron, who's a hero. And I was subbing for the great Mike Rodriguez, one of my favorite trumpet players in the world.
Yes.
And I just recently become vegetarian, and I had not really, my hold up about being vegetarian was being on the road. It can be so hard to stick to a certain type of diet. And so the gig was in Ukraine. So we went all the way out to Ukraine and had a few lovely days in Lviv with the city. And then we go to the gig and we do a sound check. And then they ask everyone about dinner. And I was still early in my commitment to being vegetarian, but I was like, this is my time to see what it's like on the road as a vegetarian. And luckily they said, are there any vegetarians? And I said, oh, that's me. And they're like, we've got you covered. And I was like, oh, it's not so bad being vegetarian on the road. So we finished the sound check, we go to the food tent, and for everyone, they've got like a beautiful bowl of brown rice and a big piece of chicken. And then for me, they had a beautiful bowl of brown rice and a slab of butter. So that was one of my best moments in Ukraine, and also a good test of my moral strength of commitment to this new what was then a new thing in my life. And now I've been, it was like once I could do that, I was good. So now I've been vegetarian for like a year and a half, and it's been wonderful.
Amazing. Oh my God, that's hilarious.
Yeah. That dinner.
That's great. Yeah. Wow. I love it. So I'm trying to think. There are so many gig food stories. I think I would have to.
Yeah, that's like a whole. Yeah,
it's its whole
own
separate series.
But also there are folks like the great Adam Schatz has helped compile like a Rolodex of all the places to go, any city, no matter where you are. Like their resources, musicians have put in work to help you further out because
paved the way. Yeah, Dan Nimmer is also like that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah, we gotta get those lists. We gotta figure that out. So hopefully, when things do open up and you are going back on the road, maybe not eating just brown rice, but hopefully a little more vegetarian protein in there. Where do you see things going in terms of the work that you are doing as this whole thing progresses? I mean, are you like itching to get right back out there on the road? Are you thinking you're going to be staying virtual for, a while? What are your thoughts?
It's so hard to know. It's so hard to plan more than a week at a time these days. But, I'm eager to get back out there. I'm eager to play. And, I've gotten to play a little bit in a couple scenarios outside, or I had one recording session with 3 people in the building, everyone actually 2 of us had it and had antibodies, but we were still masked to be safe. But I'm itching to get out there. On the other hand, I think it's going to be a while. You know, I think the reality of what we're facing, both from a safety perspective, but also from an economic perspective, in terms of, you know, the musicians have been hit hard, but then the presenters are going to be hit so hard. And a lot of the audience is going to be hit very hard too. So the entire ecosystem that we have is going to be in a very, you know, fragile state. And I don't take that lightly. And, you know, there's a lot of pain and in that. And I think the toll is going to be really tough, but at the same time, you know, it's for whatever it is, it's an opportunity for us to invest in the community that we've built, and the music will not suffer. You know, we got musicians out here like you, so many folks, people you've had on this series, who it's like we need that music right now, and the music will be there for us. So I think it's going to be a long-term question, or not question, but a long-term mission of how do we hold this thing up, and also as we build it back up, what are the changes we want to see in it? You know, I think community perspective, self perspective, community perspective, country perspective, society perspective. It's all a similar process.
Yeah, I love the word ecosystem in terms of all of this. I think that makes a lot of sense. And if you were, you know, a lot of our viewers are, you know, either emerging young musicians or people that are considering a professional career in music or jazz performance specifically. So for them during this time especially, do you have any advice that you would share in terms of how they can kind of prepare themselves, even though the situation right now has changed completely and for we don't know how long?
Yeah, I mean, it's so hard that right now, I had a conversation with Sammy Miller the other day, who's a drummer, friend of mine. We've done a lot of things together at Jazz Lincoln Center over the years. And he was saying, if you were in high school right now, would you have kept going? And I was like, I didn't even think about that. And
wow.
Because it's hard, because so much of the fun and the joy comes from playing with people. But that being said, I think what I would recommend for young musicians right now is to continue to immerse yourself in listening and in music, because that will give you a lot of sustenance. And then also, the thing I always tell young musicians is reach out and ask questions. It's like, I get to work with a lot of students over the course of a year, and I'm always so disappointed by how few I hear from after whatever camp I met them, or whatever, you know, however I came across, worked with them. You know, you're here, I'm here. The people who are mentors to me are always there, always ready to answer a text or a phone call. If I have a question, I'm always eager to help out. So, you know, there's so many ways now, Instagram, Facebook, or write me a letter, whatever you want to do. But I just urge young musicians to take advantage of the resources that they have that they might not even realize, because maybe Alexa Tarantino, people might be a little bit shy. They don't want to just write you an email, but they should, and they should ask you questions. And I think there's a lot to be gained now, especially in this time when we're even more available, because we're not jumping flight to flight, show to show.
Yeah. And if anybody does reach out, just don't forget to send sparkly antlers. That's the key.
That's the key.
So I have a little note here from Chloe, who is literally the best. She says the midway point between Rockport, Mass and Seattle is Fergus Falls, Minnesota. So we're going to Fergus Falls, baby.
That's been a hotbed for jazz for a long time.
Since the early days.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're gonna
we probably have a wonderful viewer from Fergus Falls tonight who we've offended because we've laughed at their city without even knowing. Maybe they do have a thriving music scene. We don't even know it.
Well, if they do, then we will be happy to come in and join forces. I'm sure they do. I'm sure they do. Well, on that note, Chloe, I think it's time to open the floodgates to the Q&A for Mr. Riley Mulherkar. It has been so awesome to chat with you, and yeah, let's see what the people have.
It's so good to see you.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it. I'd also like to add my apologies to the people of Fergus Falls for laughing, but hope to make it out to your beautiful city one day. For anyone that is just joining us, this is the Well-Rounded Musician with Alexa Tarantino, with special guest Riley Mulherkar, brought to you by Jazz at Lincoln Center here in New York City. Before we start the Q&A, I just want to thank Alexa and Riley, as well as all of our supporters who contribute to the cause and help us do what we can to serve the global jazz community. We really love seeing your faces and your comments every single week, and your support really does mean everything. Okay, for Q&A, if you have a question you'd like to ask here in Zoom, please use that raise hand feature. You click on the participants tab at the bottom of your screen and hit the raise hand button. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to see you. If you want to ask a question to them directly, if you're feeling a little shy, go ahead and use the chat function and message us your questions. If you're on Facebook, we're also monitoring there, so don't be shy, ask us your questions, and we'll try to get to as many as we can in the rest of the time that we have. All right, let us get going. So this person asks, they're saying that in the next couple of weeks, a lot of professional musicians are going to lose their unemployment payment or their pandemic assistance. What do you guys have to say about that? As I'm sure there's he's talking a little bit about how, that there's an effect on mental health, there's an effect on the ability to pay our rent, etc. Do you guys want to speak on that and maybe offer some advice about making money in this time or anything of that nature?
One thing I might plug real quick is an awesome campaign that's going on called Be an Arts Hero. I just signed a petition this morning. It has a number of demands for Congress in terms of the next steps of funding that come for coronavirus. And it has, one of the demands is extension of unemployment from the federal level at $600 a week. And then there are a number of other things in this letter as well. So I would recommend everyone, if you can, there's an Instagram called Be an Arts Hero, or you could just Google it. You can sign the petition, you can read the demands, because it's a very urgent thing and it's coming up really, really soon. I don't know, Alexa, do you have any thoughts in terms of making money at a time of no gigs?
Yeah, it's not ideal. I think, I've been trying to just create my own work. So Stephen Feifke and I have been doing live stream concerts on Sunday nights where we give a portion of the proceeds to various organizations supporting initiatives like artist relief funds, Standing with Black Lives Matter, and other jazz-oriented organizations as well. So I find that people that can give, I think, are really willing to, and people who are home and appreciate music also, I think it is reaching people in a different way now than it used to when they were sitting in the audience watching you. I mean, I feel like even me, as somebody who was playing all the time, I think I took a lot for granted as well. I mean, I would never have expected to be in this situation, even standing to the side of the bandstand, maybe while some other people take a solo. It's easy to look around and kind of like let your mind take you. And I'm like kicking myself now and thinking like, man, what I wouldn't give for like another opportunity, like to watch a drum solo happen in front of me. So I think as much as you can make things like that happen for yourself in a way that is helping others is great. So whether that's teaching online or doing live streams or That's pretty much what I got. Do you
Great.
want to add anything?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I mean it's tough, and I think advocating. I think everything you said, yes, and then also advocating for support, because we need it. Our whole industry needs it.
Absolutely. Okay. So, Chloe, I think we have another question coming in. Is that Chloe? May I?
Yeah.
Okay. So this question is about scales, and I think somebody's asking how to use scales like in a strong way in jazz. And so maybe I have students ask me like, I'm practicing all these scales, but I don't want to sound like a robot when I'm playing or improvising.
Mm-hmm.
So Riley, can you talk to us about bridging the gap from like when you're in the practice room playing scales and then you're actually, talking about playing melodies and trying to get off the page a little bit?
Well, I sort of, not to flip it on you, but I want to ask you about scales. I always turn to saxophone players to ask about scales. Like I'm always, I always used to be bugging Lucas Pino about scales. I didn't come at learning improvisation through scales, so I feel like I'm the wrong person to give this answer. But I will say, I think my answer to this might be transcription, because if you find people using the language of scales in a way where it has the freedom of speaking, just like this sort of improvisation, and then it gets you away from whatever the scale was in the practice room.
Yeah.
So, it's like, if you want to learn a language, you're going to try to immerse yourself in that language, even if you know the building blocks of the grammar, or even if you know the words to use, you want to be speaking with people who speak that language. But Alexa, give me some scales. Give me some scoop on the scales.
Some scale scoops. Let's see. So I was a big scale nerd back in my day. I really sat there and went in all 12 keys, and I still do. But now I like to practice them in intervals. So I'll practice a certain key center or a certain type of scale in seconds and thirds, fourths, fifths, sixths, sevenths, and then octaves. And just for saxophone, that is very helpful for our voicing, and I'm sure for other horn players as well. So I like to do that, and then from there I can kind of like create my own vocabulary using those intervals. So if I'm in the mood for some sevenths, and maybe I'm working in a key that's less comfortable, maybe I'm working on a particular 2/5 or chord progression, I can kind of improvise a little something using those shapes and end up creating my own vocabulary. And if I like what I came up with, that's something that I would work through, a whole other all the other 11 keys. And so I'm a big fan of like using intervals and alterations to like create your own vocabulary from kind of the standard like 2/5 vocabulary that we might hear. So I hope that's helpful.
It's helpful for me.
For me as well. All right, this is a cool question. I think both of you probably have a lot to speak about. This person asks, for musicians who are performing virtually and through live stream and using technology, what's some important tips you can give us if we're sort of getting into that for the first time? We're live streaming concerts for the first time, if we're trying to do some of these like virtual at home videos. Give us your expert tips.
Yeah, go Riley, you got this.
Well, I think, I mean, I've been deep in this for the past X number of months, and there is a big difference between live streaming and recording at home. And a lot of what I do is recording at home and then finding ways to splice it together to make it feel as organic as a live performance. And a lot of people end up getting tricked, which means you're doing it well. But when you see those videos of 70 people in an orchestra playing together, they probably were not playing together at the same time. In terms of actual live streaming, it's very difficult to pull off, but it's possible. I would take the time to, it's as boring as like figuring out what settings you need to change on Zoom so that it doesn't change your sound as much as it wants to, thinking that you're talking, or if it's a different platform, doing that research to figure out how the audio works on each platform. Also getting away from the audio that comes through whatever tablet or phone or computer you're using. If you can send audio through a microphone, that'll improve the sound and the overall experience you're giving a lot. And then from a presentation side of things, you know, people are being bombarded with live streams now. There's so much going on. So I think, I don't know, I didn't even know what I think as much as just to acknowledge that there's sort of an oversaturation of it now. So if you can find something that is meaningful, a meaningful way of it could be what you're bringing to it, it could be the way you're presenting it, or it could just say your expectations in terms of what you want to get out of it, because there's just, you know, there's a lot going on every night, and I find myself, you know, every night being, oh, I missed 5 different things. It's sort of like a night in New York City where there are 5 different shows you want to see, but just big picture, you know, it can be hard to make a space for your own live stream. So just understand that and then help you frame it in a certain way.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think for me, it's been a whole new experience in terms of approaching the audience and trying to stay on my game. So while I normally wear slippers during my live streams, like I really, at least in the beginning, would try to like make sure I was kind of dressed up as if I was going to a gig and have my set list written out and have my comments on who I needed to address and thank and all this stuff, because otherwise it's easy to kind of like ramble and let things go, and you know, you're like, next thing you know, you're giving people a home tour. So it's like, if you can treat it as much as like it's a real concert venue or a gig, I think that's a good practice.
Great. You can also hire a video editor. Speaking from personal experience.
Yes.
One day I'm going to give, Alexa's going to interview me on the Well-Rounded Musician to talk about video editing.
Hashtag jazz therapy.
Yeah. Shout out to Chloe and Adam and everyone who's making this video stuff work for Jazz Lincoln Center.
I wasn't fishing for compliments, but thank you.
But I'm giving it to you anyway.
All right. Okay, we have, I think we have time for one more question. So this question's from Chris. It's obviously sort of a interesting time in the world, everything going on, especially being here in New York City. It feels like we're sort of at the heart of protests and movements, and you know, I think we're on 2 straight months of daily protests. How does that sort of translate into jazz? So what are your thoughts on inclusivity in jazz? How it's doing a good job? How it can be improved? How are we seeing the future of inclusivity and diversity in jazz? If you guys want to speak on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think jazz has a history of being part of a lot of movements for liberation, for freedom, and I think this is no different in that sense. And I think artists are so often hopefully organized and aligned with organizers and people on the ground. So I think there's inherent in jazz and in the jazz community a strong solidarity with the movement and the demonstrations and protests and everything we're seeing right now. At the same time, that doesn't let the jazz community off the hook in terms of the ways it's complicit in systems that perpetuate systemic racism, in ways, you know, especially in the jazz world, that are just, you know, whether it's inclusivity issues related to just the oftentimes like toxic masculinity environments that are created in jazz spaces. These are things that need to be, I think we need to use this moment to re-examine them and to bring the same lens to them that we would to other spaces, and not let ourselves off the hook just because of just because the music we're playing is all about freedom, just because there's so much freedom and inclusivity that happens in a big band or that happens in a quartet, doesn't mean that we can let ourselves off the hook in terms of making sure that the spaces we're in, and that goes for the musicians, that goes for the audience, that goes for the presenters. It's every part of the equation. We have to hold them accountable in the same way. And I also think that, speaking for myself, speaking for the community that I'm a part of, the more we can be actually literally in touch and know people leading the movement. I was just in a conversation before this call about how, you know, in the 70s, you know, Harry Belafonte knew MLK and Nina Simone and knew people leading, you know, movements for freedom and liberation and in the 70s. And I think there's been more of a separation in this day and age, perhaps than there was then, in terms of how literally in touch are musicians and artists in with people who are on the ground fighting for change and trying to organize and attack the structures that need to be brought down. So that's something that I've been thinking about too.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you, Riley. And thank you for all that you're sharing online and all you're doing to get involved on the ground level. I think to add to what you're saying, I mean, for me, I am always learning, and especially I was in New York City for the most part of quarantine for like the first 14 weeks, but I was not leaving my home. And so I watched and supported, you know, every single person that we knew and all of our amazing friends and peers and collaborators that were using their instruments and playing and leading these beautiful protests. It was very inspiring. And so I think now that I'm out of the city, it's just keeping that self-education going and continuing to be aware, even though, you know, New York City really it's an amazing place. And right now it is, you know, it may have its struggles in terms of certain areas and certain, you know, buildings and COVID and all of this stuff. But at the end of the day, when you see all these people coming together, it's so beautiful and inspiring. And so I think if we can contribute in any way that we can, whether that's composing music, you know, with these thoughts in mind, I think every little bit helps. And it actually brings me back to the fact that this month at Jazz at Lincoln Center, all of our energy and intention is centered around the word freedom. And I think it's been really amazing to see all of the programming and all of the people that have shared their thoughts so openly. So I would encourage anybody who hasn't seen any of those little vignettes on Instagram or any of the platforms to check that out. And it's always great to keep learning. So thank you, Riley, for sharing all of that.
Thank you, Alexa, for having me on the show. It's such a joy to be here and to get to see you.
Woohoo! Next time with the antlers.
Yes.
And I just want to, a round of applause for Chloe, who is our fantastic video editor. And I can't believe it's episode 12 and she's not sick of me yet. So hope you all can come back next week and for a special guest TBD, and Chloe can give us her parting spiel.
Yeah, I'll do my spiel. Guys, like Alexa said, we'll be back next week for a new episode of The Well-Rounded Musician. In the meantime, please keep track of everything going on with us at Jazz at Lincoln Center, Jazz at Lincoln Center on Facebook, or jazz.org on Instagram or Twitter. We have lots of stuff going on. We are in the final 2 days of Summer Jazz Academy, which is all day long classes which you can still sign up for if you'd like to participate in our last few days. Just go to jazz.org/SJA. You will not be disappointed. It's been an amazing couple of days. That all being said, if you would like to, if you were inspired tonight, if it's within your means, and you'd like to support some artists, we are a nonprofit here at Jazz at Lincoln Center, and we are depending on donations from people like you. It means so much to have your support. So if you'd like to make a donation, if you're compelled to make a donation, you can do so at jazz.org/donate. We're also linking Alexa and Riley's personal websites here in Zoom and on Facebook. So I'm sure you can find out all the information you want about them there. And that's all from me. Thank you both. Thank you, Riley. Thank you, Alexa. And we will see you guys next time.
Bye, everyone. Thank you. Check out Riley's links. We've got his website and the Westerlies coming in on the links. And the Westerlies have a new album out, Wherein the Good Lies Now.
Wherein Lies the Good.
Wherein Lies the Good. Sorry, I just had it right here and then I flipped it. I'm so sorry. Okay, ending on a high note. Here we go.
Let me make sure we get that on Facebook so that the people can get that link.
Yeah, so Wherein Lies the Good, new album out now from Riley and the Westerlies. So check that out.
And Alexa has a new album too. Everyone should already know that.
You're the best.
All right,
You're the best.
Guys.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.